at 10 o'clock? No.
Yes, very much.
Kim, what's the headline on the, can't remember her name. Patience.
Did you guys read the TMS letter yet?
No, why?
My middle grade is in middle school, so it talks about what they're going to be
Okay.
kind of different.
What they're gonna do for what?
So they're going to do group of days, like the nobody's called in
Yeah,
for
that's what I thought.
day,
Um,
which is what we had
Okay.
talked about.
Okay.
And so I had to bring
leave guys, go alone.
So I assume they're all doing it.
I don't like that group classroom. I've been working with Althea. I don't know what to do. He says he's going to go to a classroom, and I said, okay, sit down, do it. Well, he had papers I could look at, and I know what to do, and I had to know what I needed to do. Google Classroom, okay, do it. I'm feeling like I'm feeling like a babysitter. He's fourth grade.
So Brody's in fifth grade.
You're gonna have anybody that's
I'm a little lost
worried about
too.
it.
He gets it 100% though. He flies.
My first grader, I had it.
Yeah.
This is really interesting. I know, but I like to know what he's doing and what's happening. And I like seeing the paper ahead because I see it's just out there. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I'll get used to it. Maybe I will. But they all just had COVID. It was just more than 14 days.
No, I'm full of friends. I think that okay. I don't need okay for like even. Don't worry, I'll just keep working.
There's a couple things that somebody might have.
And I think the rest of them I think kind of came through okay, like Andy and Rachel. But I went out to get something for a fair and he started watching TV and I don't know, he looked on my face and I actually backed up and he said, I'm okay.
I mean,
What is this doing? And then I asked him about negative, because they is testing twice a week. And he said he couldn't get a negative test.
Yeah.
She test
Yeah,
positive.
3 to 4 months. You test before you shed a negative. It's the tick box where you shed dead cells.
Good evening.
So you're
How
not.
are you?
You're not.
But it still says it.
You should be able to get a waiver from CDC.
We should what?
You should be able to get a waiver from CDC.
Oh,
Once
yeah.
you've been positive, you get a waiver after.
Yeah, and they, Andy said she had a messages. She said they call it Sarah alert. And they would ask about symptoms and stuff, and they just kept telling her when she was no longer contagious and whatever, so she knew. And, or fair, I don't even know if she really had it. She was she kept putting it
do you need me to ask this?
to be sure.
I can do it later. Go, go, go.
Go, go, go.
Be a go-go girl.
I'm not gonna go there.
No, don't go there.
Well, it appears that everybody's present and accounted for at this point, so I would like to call to order the 7th regular meeting of the Board of Directors of SAD 52, and if Joanne could lead us in the pledge, that would be wonderful.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
first order of business would be to act on the minutes of October 22nd. Any errors or omissions on those? Seeing none, we accept those under general consent. Communications, Kim.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you, Yuri. I'd like to report the following resignation. Donald Shields, district-wide bus driver, which was effective October 22nd.
Thank you. Adjustments to the agenda?
There is only the one that is listed there, which is removal of agenda item 8.1.5.
Thank you. That brings us to committee reports. Finance, Yuri.
We met earlier this evening. We signed warrant articles. We reviewed August and September financials. The only real item that somebody might notice if they were looking at those compared with last year is that this year where we have gotten rid of our accrued summer salaries, it looks like we're underspent right now, but that will obviously catch up at the end of the year rather than at the beginning like it usually does. Currently, the district is in process of their yearly audit. Some of the circumstances have postponed some of the information that they need back, so that's going to be delayed a little bit, and we're waiting to hear back to make a decision on when that's going to be completed. And the only other thing that we spoke about that I thought was worth mentioning is that obviously this year with the amount of, with COVID and everything else that's happening, our unemployment costs are up significantly. We've spent about $50,000 since last April on unemployment. Because we're self-insured, we're on the hook for that, and that $50,000 is the amount that we paid, and the CARES Act paid 50% of our unemployment costs today.
Thank you. Any questions for Yuri or Finance? Thank you. PTB, that's me, we have not met this time. Moving on to curriculum policy, Joanne.
We did meet, so that makes 2 meetings this week in case anybody cares. What you're getting tonight is just second readings. You've already seen that once. What we met about is new stuff that you get next time. And we did immunization of students to make it go with the new law that was passed. We did communicable infectious diseases. We did, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but it's lice regulation, communicable disease. We deleted it because it doesn't matter anymore. Student dropout prevention and a job description for affirmative action, chapter Title IX coordinator. And you'll be seeing all of those things next meeting.
Thanks, Joanne. So curriculum policy continues to be busy as well. Any questions for Joanne or the committee? We'll look forward to seeing those next time. Student representative. Don't.
Yes, Key Club has been doing a lot of
You're
work in the
hiding
building. Hello, good evening. I'm also president of Key Club. We've been able to make 21 cards for Camp Sunshine, which we sent out a few weeks ago. So far, our fundraiser for UNICEF, we've raised $84.50. There is a request to have expansion of that fundraiser throughout the building, so we hope to raise more money for them throughout the month. The community food drive is underway. Key Club has partnered with National Honor Society to raise money and food donations for the schools as well as the local food banks and a couple local families. We're making Thanksgiving baskets. Harvest Festival has also begun. Students are doing wall decorating, and next week there'll be dress-up days. It's come in place of homecoming events, which would have taken place September, October, and I think students are enjoying that, so I think that's good for student involvement to get involved with the COVID restrictions. And that's all.
Excellent, thank you. Administrator report, building principals.
Good evening, my name is Ryan Patry. I'm the principal at Turner Primary School, and I just wanted to share a couple highlights from Turner Primary School. One of the big highlights is that our pre-K playground is being renovated, and we have had some machines outside of our school, and if you ever are around 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, it's like their dream come true. The kids were so excited to see the machines out there flattening the ground, removing the fencing, and then they can see that there's some new structures that are being prepared to be put up. And so the kids are going to be really excited to have the opportunity to use those new structures. So I do want to thank the community for supporting the playground projects, because our pre-K kids will love using them. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Danielle Harris, principal at Leeds Central School, and it doesn't matter if you're 4 or 5 years old, or 50 or 60 years old. Those big machines are pretty exciting to watch, and some people in our building have been spending a lot of time looking out the windows, because if you've driven by our school this week, they've cut down two huge trees. That happened on Tuesday, so that was excitement. And the intermediate grades 3 through 6 have these huge windows that look right up towards 106. Where our construction project is happening, getting a new bus loop, which is super exciting because it's going to separate the cars from the kids and the buses from each other, so that we're not having people crossing over, which has been a big problem for a long time. So then yesterday, a whole bunch of stuff happened while we weren't there, and then today it was just amazing. And before I left tonight, I looked, and I think it's ready to be paved. I'm not sure, but they were rolling they're digging out dirt today and putting new dirt in. And then by the time I left today, it was all smooth, and you could see the difference between the grass and where the dirt was. It's like so happening so fast and amazing, but it is so much fun to sit there and watch all those trucks.
Good evening. I shared with everyone my newsletter. I've been doing newsletters since I became principal, and I usually go out the first week of the month. And so what we have learned over the years is that middle schoolers do not bring them home, and we find them everywhere. So this year they're being, I send them through a robo email through a school messenger. And then we post it on our Facebook page and we post it on our website so that the parents now have places to go to find the news that's happening. So, thank you.
Good evening, Kelly Marston, Turner Elementary School. I don't have big trucks at my school yet, but I understand I will, so that's something to look forward to. But I just wanted to say that in the past couple of days, I've just been amazed at my staff and the students, and I've been part of meetings and been in classrooms and watching what teachers are doing, and just thinking about schools and in this challenging time, and the things that how we've had to adapt, and just think of new systems and ways to make connections and engage students. And I've just been incredibly impressed and just blown away by my staff at TES. Feel like they've come together, pulled together as a team, and they're willing to step up and help one another. It's a great feeling. We wake up sometimes and we don't know if we have any subs, and this morning was one of those times where we woke up and I was like, oh, how are we going to do that 7 without subs? And they came all together and figured it out, and was like, yeah, no, we got this, we can do this. And it meant that covering, extra duties and figuring out how to do those things, and with a really positive attitude, and some amazing professional development on Wednesdays where teachers are coming together to talk about problem solving, but also these incredible ways they've found to, like either a program or a way to connect with kids, to engage them, and sharing with one another, and everybody excited to write it down. So I've just been really impressed with what they've been able to do. So I think that's a great thing.
Good evening, Doug Parker from Green Central School. I just wanted to take a few minutes and just share just a couple of things going on. Getting a lot of feedback from teachers that, and again, in this difficult time, we're always looking for something as positive as we can find. And so, I had been asking around, and one of the pieces that continued to show up, almost a theme, if you will, was how each teacher is able to generate a positive relationship with students, and even more so with the smaller classes. And obviously, it's really, really difficult. If we ask any teacher, they would much rather have all their students back all at once, be back to normal, whatever normal is nowadays. But the fact that there's such a high level of positivity when it comes to the kids, teachers are able to filter out their own stress, and really continue to build those strong positive relationships with the students, and the fact that there are fewer there at a time allows that to continue to grow. We have our morning meetings, which give all the teachers better bearing on where the kiddos are, because again, we come in at varying places, but that tends to be a theme when I'm getting feedback from teachers, just that ability to dig deep and continue to build those positive relationships with students in a much more almost intimate manner. And so that's a plus. Of course, I do have to reiterate, we did have some big equipment at our school recently, some 18-wheelers that actually made it down onto the playground area. How they made it up, we figured out when we saw the mud ruts and everything, but that's all behind us now. And we do have the regular playground fully installed. The only downside is because we have various sections in the playground, not every kiddo has gotten an opportunity to play on it yet. That's coming. So we're looking forward to that, and it was, I believe, 2 18-wheelers full of chips, just to make sure there's plenty of cushioning underneath. So we're looking forward so everybody gets a rotation. And then finally, it's been pretty busy inside the green as well. As Superintendent Brandt has pointed out, we've had some challenges with connectivity in our building, and we've had some challenges trying to figure out exactly what was going on. That has been figured out. Technology's been phenomenal about supporting us. This week, we had technicians, last week actually, we had technicians in starting to run new wire. And anybody that's walked around Green, it's not exactly a tiny place. It's pretty sprawling with a wing upon a wing upon a wing, and you go upstairs and all of a sudden it was just ladders and legs that we just saw just kind of hanging from the drop ceiling, and they ran wire like unbelievable amounts of wire, just rolls and rolls of it. And by the time I believe Monday came this week, they were complete, they were done, and I found one of the technicians, he had checked in the office of course, but found him in a closet, like jammed in, making all the connections on a bundle of wire, like absolutely huge. So we're very excited to be able to provide that improved connectivity for our students. Also do want to point out that there was a little bit of an internal glitch that one of our, Dwayne Fournier, our tech teacher, discovered, made a slight adjustment, and somehow that magic happened and really opened up the speed on the devices for our students. So we were able to really improve the connectivity there. So with all of those pieces going on, we're getting in better and better shape. So just wanted to share that. Thanks.
So, as you can imagine, it's pretty busy around high school most of the time. Today was no exception to that. Today was actually the first day of our second quarter, which doesn't seem like it's a huge deal, but where we're in the semester-based schedule, the first day of the second quarter is actually, well, yesterday would have been the last day of first semester classes, so we had schedule changes today, and I think I want to use that as an illustrative way of talking about how everybody's working together at school and how things have changed. Historically, we have to go to our HPT rooms and get new schedules and make sure everybody knows where they're going. And logistically, that's just really difficult to do with the schedule that we're in.
So we just went with it today, and it went really well. There were really very few hiccups to start the day. Everybody was helping each other out to get where they needed to go, which has been really the theme of the year. And I have a great deal of respect for the way that my staff and students have handled the start of school to get through the end of first quarter and start of the second quarter. And everybody's helping each other out, whether it's a tech issue or even having conversations around working with in this remote setting. So things have been busy, but going well, even though sometimes it can be a little frustrating. So a little busy at the high school, but things are going well.
Randy?
Going swiftly as I can.
That joke gets old fast.
It still works. Hi, Randy Swift, Technology Director. I'm going to report on a huge project I've been involved with for the last couple of months. One of my concerns was with all the devices coming in, newer devices, and going one-to-one pre-K to grade 6, that we are definitely throwing a lot more devices onto our networks than we've ever had before. So the infrastructure became a concern to me. Many of our schools are older wiring, and our wireless system would be due to be replaced probably next year. So I checked to see if if we could possibly do something through CRF monies, and they said, well, let's try it. So I put some monies into CRF1, got together with some vendors, came up with a plan to replace the physical cabling and the wireless in the entire district, and it got approved. So with that approval, we were able to come up with a plan to redo all the schools and the central office except for the high school with the first round of CRS. So as Doug said, we haven't started green because they seem to be the problem area right now. And they finished pulling cable and terminating them last week. So they started at leads on Monday. They finished pulling leads, it was either yesterday, I believe it was yesterday or the day before. And this morning I walked them through the elementary school and they started pulling cable in the elementary school. Once all the cable was done and terminated, we will start working on the wireless infrastructure and replacing all the wireless access points. I actually have a conference call tomorrow with our access point vendor as we will be working on initial configs, so we will be ready to just pop them in and be ready to roll. So that's a pretty exciting project. But the high school was left out. Now we could have survived with the high school being left out only because they're the newest building and their infrastructure isn't as old and decrepit as some of the other buildings. But then CRF2 came around. So we put the high school in CRF2, got approved, so we're going to be doing the same thing at the high school. This is approximately just over $450,000 project. The high school alone is close to $160,000 because it's such a huge building. But this is a fantastic opportunity for us because before the pandemic hit, I was looking at how am I going to get a school in the budget to be rewired and have this wireless access system district-wide swapped out. So we've solved how we're going to do that problem. And it's happening. And I think that's the most exciting part because every vendor is right out straight. Stuff is difficult to get. I just had about 8-10 boxes, large boxes of access points show up today. So those are coming in. So it's just a matter of time to get the project done, up and running. We also had a problem because of the density at Green and Leeds with their bandwidth going out to the internet. Network Maine is our service provider, and Network Maine acts as an consortium for most of the schools in the state of Maine because they provide it to us for free. They do all the legwork and funding and stuff, so it's really not free, but we're not paying them. They're doing E-rate funding through on our behalf. But Green and Leeds had what's called a VPN back to the high school, and it only was 100 megabyte pipe. Well, 100 megabyte pipe, for any of you that have a Spectrum, is probably what you have in your house. So we have 2 schools going through what you probably have at your house if you have Spectrum. So I've been working with Network Maine. They had an initiative in place that they were looking at these schools that were in similar situations as us. And I think it was a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, at an ad team I announced that Network Maine, I got hold of Network Maine, and they were announcing that they were going to give us a gigabit pipe from Leeds and a gigabit pipe from Green back to the high school. So that's huge. It's being provided by Spectrum. They don't have a timeline on when Spectrum's going to make that change. But when it happens, it's going to be, long term, it's going to be awesome. So some huge things happen in technology. Now, that's all the good news. The bad news is devices are still not the same. Laptops, Chromebooks, they just aren't coming. That's the best I can tell you. They're still sticking to kind of like that late December, maybe January now, but there's just no definite time frames on these Chromebooks and laptops. And everybody in the country is in the same boat. So that's my technology report. Questions for me? Thank you.
Michelle Coates, Business Manager. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm so proud of my whole team. You saw what Dave's doing with food service the last meeting. Transportation has been very, very flexible. They have been, making sure that students are picked up and dropped off, and they're, things change daily, and they different cohorts and days off, and what do we do on our days off, and it's been a challenge for everyone. I want to say thank you to Dan. He is doing some amazing juggling with all these projects, and I'm very happy that he's providing entertainment for all of the primary schools with all of the big trucks and the 18-wheelers. I know that he, he has a big job on a good day, and adding in all these projects with such a short timeline. I really appreciate the work that he's doing. What I wanted to talk about, what I asked to speak about, was the business office. About a year ago, I came to the board and pled my case that we were severely shorthanded and I was not feeling that we were as efficient as we could be, should be. And felt like I was always teetering on the edge of, one good flu and we're in trouble. And you guys allowed me to hire an HR and benefits position. At that time, I felt as though we really, really, really needed that position. Had no idea that we were going to have a pandemic and we're going to really, 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 really need that position. So I just want to take a minute and tell you what the business office has been up to and what we have been able to do with the addition of that extra body, and just a little bit about all what the pandemic has meant for my group as well. So some improvements that we've made since December are we've created a frequently asked questions document for employees that all employees get with open enrollment through email. We now have a shared document folder for all HR and payroll related forms. Before you had to go to the business office and we had to dig through our files, and now all of that's online. We also have a shared folder with HR and payroll and the superintendent so that we can put information into that folder for easy access. With the pandemic, it created a need for us to go completely remote with all payroll. We did have some stragglers that were reluctant to do direct deposit. That kind of pushed that a little bit. So right now, other than a couple of subs, all of our employees have direct deposits, so no paper checks any longer. All hiring postings are now done by HR and benefits specialists. All applications that come in are now scanned and are online. They're all scanned and online by HR, and they're available to the administrators at any time. We used to transport paper through inter-office, for all application, and, sometimes the administrator would come to central office and look through the files to see who would come in. Now, they're in there immediately, they can just pop in and see what's new. We've moved payroll annuity payments to ACH for 5 or 6 of our vendors, and that's every pay period, so that's less paper. All hiring postings are now being done by HR specialists. All contracts for the district are now created and sent from HR. Frontline maintenance. Frontline is our system that we use for lost time, for absences. I guess absences is probably a better way to put it. And at the point that somebody starts, somebody has to put them in, and when somebody leaves, they have to take them out. So they're doing new hires, terminations, attendance plans are being taken care of by both human resources and payroll. We have really streamlined a lot of the responsibilities. There's also forms that are now on the staff website that used to be just paper copies. We created a process for CHRC renewal. And just some information on what the pandemic has caused for workload. In payroll, we normally process between 5 and 10 unemployment claims per year. This year, since March, we've processed over 100 claims. And the other side to that is that we've now received the invoices and now realize that we need to go back and dispute some of them or question them. So it's almost like doing it a second time. Every time we add new fund codes, so every time we get a new grant, so CRF1, CRF2, CRF Adult Ed, CARES, we have to create new earning codes. And then payroll has to take those and they have to create the earning codes, but I have to create the funds. So that's been a lot of extra work, and then we have to assign people to those different codes. Human Resources all of us really, have been trying to keep up to date on all the federal leave requirements and expectations. We've been working as a team because there is a lot going on, and when one of us doesn't know, then the other one does, and if we don't know, then we find out the answer. The Human Resources employee has been working with employees who need FFCRA, which is the new leave, tracking the usage and collecting information and paperwork. Accounts payable with an extra $3.2 million. You can imagine that that's caused a lot of extra work for accounts payable. This year to date, Sally's processed 924 purchase orders. By process, that means that she takes a requisition, she creates the purchase order, she prints the purchase order, she either emails it, faxes it, mails it, she actually places the order. She has to reconcile all of those orders, and then she has to pay the bills when they come in. So she's done 924 year to date, and all of last year, she did a lot of 1,134 for the whole year. So she's only 200 shy of what she did all of last year. So our plans for the future are to continue cross-training. We had hoped to be further along in that, obviously, than we are. We do have, all of the employees have enough background that we can jump in if absolutely need be with a little guidance. But we're not quite where we would like to be, so as soon as the pandemic's over, then we're going to continue that. The AP person is the backup for payroll right now. Payroll person is the backup for AP. The HR person also has some AP experience in creating requisitions, that type of thing. So it shouldn't be a big stretch to get everybody cross-trained and up to full speed. We also want to continue to update the business office section of the district website so that staff members have access to forms, website addresses, and everything all in one place. Our HR specialist is working on becoming a wellness ambassador to help our employees take advantage of health savings. And she went to a training and they gave the district $500 that she can use to help with wellness activities. We would like to continue to streamline the various processes in hiring. We'd like to move to electronic applications. We're still a paper system application business. And continue updating our forms so that they're more electronic driven instead of paper driven. And we also found out that we have a mandatory paid time law that goes into effect on January 1st, that we will need to determine what exactly that means for the district and determine how to implement. So that's what my office has been up to. I can't even begin to thank you guys enough for allowing me to hire that extra person when I thought I really needed them, and then we would have been in a big pickle right now had that not happened. So, but really, thank you to all my group and my coworkers too. This whole thing has been amazing, and everybody stepped up. Any questions?
So I think busy is an understatement. Certainly sounds that way, and I guess I'm struck by the consistency and the positive outlook that everyone put forth this evening. I'm sure that's not the case 24/7. We're all human, but I think we're very fortunate as a district to have you folks modeling that every day. I'm sure it is challenging many moments of the day, but we're very fortunate, and thank you for that, and really exciting work going on as well at like lightning speed as well. So thank you for that. Kim, again, this is a tough act to follow, so.
Yes, and you just said what I was going to say, but I'm going to say it again anyway. So I would just like to say thank you, Ryan, Evan, Danielle, Gail, Kelly, and Doug, because every communication we have, which is frequent, it is always about student learning, supporting your teachers and staff, and health and safety of everyone in the school building. It is not easy, but you remain motivational, you remain upbeat, and you keep a smile on your face as much as you possibly can, and I think that makes all the difference in a time when there are a lot of challenges. So I thank you all for that very much. I'd also like to thank Dan and Danielle in particular for their excellent handling of the situation at Leeds today, making sure everybody was safe and taking care of it, and it was just done just straight to the book. Great job on that. As many of you heard, or you just heard many of our principals talk about the projects that are going on in all the different schools, and that's Dan juggling all of those projects, and of course we have to get everything done by December 30th. So the work with the vendors that you had to do ahead of time, and now just constantly going around to make sure that those projects will be completed. I appreciate that very much. We're going to have some excellent upgrades as a result of that. Randy, the same with you and the infrastructure. You have been all over that so that that can actually happen for us. It's going to make a huge difference for us now and also for several years in the future. So thank you for that. Teresa, you are constantly meeting with grade level leaders, with principals. Thank you so much for all of your support. And while you're doing that, you're also getting closer to your doctorate degree. So keep up that good work. I'd also like to thank you, Michelle, because I can't even describe what's happening, but $3.2 million and everything that comes with that is huge. You and the team continue to create efficient systems for us. I feel like the business office is working better than it ever has before, even though you are completely inundated with money, which we can't usually say that. And I would also like to thank the board for the support of everything that we have been doing. I know there's a lot of communication. Plans that we have in place can change within an hour. and good questions come from you that help us to keep thinking and rethinking what we're doing. And I think that is going to be the thankful part. Now, on to the MSMA conference. Richard, would you like to talk about the delegate assembly?
Do I have to?
Please do.
Would you like the microphone, or you?
No, I don't think you need to. You can all hear me, right? If you can't, you have missed the thing. The day before the delegate assembly, I went on my computer and participated in a training session. However, the next day, when it came time for the delegate assembly, I couldn't get on. I tried this, I tried that, never did get on, but I have a report. It began at 3:30 and ended at 8:30. 5 hours. I wouldn't have stayed on anyway, that long. But on the resolutions that we discussed at a previous meeting, all 4 of them were passed by overwhelming margins. 63 to 7, 50 to 7, 46 to 6, and 49 to 3 were the final results. Consequently, they are all in effect. There were some minor adjustments in the wording. And at the beginning of the time on the agenda to discuss the resolutions, somebody made a motion that we accept them en masse with one vote. Well, obviously that didn't happen. So I'm guessing that most of that 5-hour period, or at least probably half of it, was devoted to discussing the 4 resolutions. So whatever you have in the way of paperwork from the previous meetings, essentially those all 4 were adopted. And that's my report.
Thank you, Richard. The MSNA conference this year was completely virtual, and it was interesting, but I think it was structured very, very well. It was easy to get onto sessions. I didn't have any technical difficulties at all, which I appreciated. There were good sessions put on by Drummond Woodsum. There were good sessions put on by various groups, and one of the ones that I enjoyed was the one that was put on by Bear Shea, and that was about the social emotional learning piece. So we're talking a lot and hearing a lot these days in particular about social emotional learning. He did a really nice job in that presentation, and basically we say that term a lot, but what it really means is it's knowing yourself. It's recognizing your own emotions, recognizing how those emotions can translate into actions, recognizing how those actions can impact others. So it's the interpersonal skills, the relationship building, working well with others. So that was particularly good. And of course the collective bargaining, which I always go to those because things change constantly. And there were some interesting sessions on special ed compliance that I also enjoyed. So I felt like, although you missed the opportunity to be with your colleagues and some of your board members, and you get to discuss things with those groups, it was still a very good and well done conference.
And I might add that all those sessions, those workshops, I believe are still available online until something like November 14th. So you can jump on to the MSMA website and pick those up.
Yes, yes. The governor put out an executive order number 16 about mask wearing about a week and a half ago, and there's been some questions about what that meant, so I wanted to clarify that at tonight's board meeting. They released a DOE priority notice today because so many superintendents were saying, what does this mean? What does this mean for the mask breaks that we have in place for students and staff that are pretty critical? So clarity came today in the form of that priority notice. And really what it is that what they wrote was that schools have been very diligent in their efforts to ensure compliance with mask wearing as one of the 6 requirements for health and safety during in-person instruction. So the updated language does not alter the current practices for schools. What it does say is that all people in public and on school property need to be wearing masks. And that's basically what that order was about. So keep your mask on when you're on the school property. You should have masks on everywhere, but that's what, there's no reason for us to change the practices that we're doing. Last board meeting, Richard, I believe you asked me how many people were quarantining, and I was really happy to say nobody. We had nobody. It's a little different today. We currently have 44 people in quarantine today across our district in 5 of our 6 schools. That is 6 staff members and 38 students. So that can change at any minute, hopefully for the better, but we're keeping an eye on that. Principals and school nurses are doing a tremendous job of working with the DOE and the CDC. Every single time we learn of a positive case, we are on with the CDC, who is telling us exactly how to handle that, who is walking us through the close contact identification, and it is working well because everyone is working as a team together. Another interesting thing that has come out is that the state, the DOE, is no longer going to contract with the vendor, Cognia. Cognia is the vendor who supplied the Empower Me testing. We call them the MEA tests every single spring. We are required to do testing of our students in the spring, every spring. And they are no longer going to contract with that particular company, so we will have a different assessment for students in the spring. There have been no final decisions about what that assessment will be. However, it was mentioned that last January at the superintendent's convocation, when the commissioner asked us what we thought might work, we did give feedback about the fact that a formative assessment is very helpful because of the timeliness of getting the results back, that we can use the results of a formative test right then to inform instruction. And that makes all the difference. With the current MEA or Empower Me tests we've been taking, it has been well into the fall before we get those results. You're no longer with that group of students. It's been months and months already, so the data hasn't been very helpful to us. If we have a formative assessment where students can test, we can have the results of those tests very, very quickly. We can then use those results right then to inform instruction. So it may be that the state would consider something like the NWEA tests, which we already use in this district. So I'll keep you apprised of what happens there. The other part of that is that Cognia also did the SAT at the high school. The state is no longer requiring the SAT, and the state is no longer paying for it. So I talked to Eben about that, and Eben and Betsy as well. And Eben does believe there will be students who still want to sit for the SAT. So we will be, Eben and I will be talking further about what that would look like and how we would make that possible for those students. And back to the social emotional, oh yes, if you remember at our last board meeting, I talked to you about the Moose platform, and that is the main online really depot of lessons that are accessible to all main educators. And we actually have 4 teachers in this district who were selected to help develop those lessons. You know, Nadia and Neil Ryu, right, and Ms. Robitaille, and also Sarah Michaud. So we're really proud of them. And the DOE has also developed a social emotional learning curriculum called SEL for Me. So that again is more curriculum that can be accessed by any main educator, and it's being encouraged that we do that for our students. I also want to give you an update on the playgrounds. At our last board meeting, I think you had asked at some point if playgrounds were still open or closed, and we had them closed on advice from our insurance carrier back in the spring. Since that time, many districts have reopened their playgrounds for the general public, not for organized sports, but for the general public to be able to use those playgrounds when they want. So we went ahead, and Dan actually had new signs made up, because it's things like, you know, this is basically you're at your own risk. You need to wash your hands, sanitize before using them, please social distance, you need to wear masks, but you can use the playgrounds at this time. And that was from language from our insurance carrier as well on that. So our grounds are now available for people who want to use playgrounds again. And that's it for me.
So busy continues to be the key word here. Lots of different moving parts, and thanks again for keeping all that moving forward, Kim. And I guess I'd just go back to Richard's comment on the MSMA conference. To me, that's a tremendous value of the conference being in the format that it was in this year, is the ability to go back and access some of those sessions, because I think for anyone who's been to the conference, a lot of times there are, in those blocks of time, there might be more than one, or hopefully there's more than one session that would be of interest. So having the ability to go back and access those at another time that might be more convenient than the middle of the day on Thursday, for example, is a huge value. So I certainly hope that that's something that we have the ability to communicate back to the folks there, that would be a pretty huge value going forward. And I would imagine over time might give us a better ability for folks who can't necessarily fit in a day and a half during the week in their schedule to have access to some of those sessions, as Kim said before. I mean, it's not that often that we get free legal advice. It's obviously not free, but it's also probably not, the meter isn't ticking at quite the same rate as it does when we go to Drummond and Woodson on our own. So that's a pretty positive sort of thing there. On top of all the other positive things, except for the 5-hour energy option there. I'm terribly sorry that you were unable to connect to that, as I'm sure you are as well. But it's the thought that counts, so thank you. Anybody have any questions for Kim or any of the other administrators at this point? If not, that brings us to public comment. Do we have any public wishing to comment? If not, move on to old business and item 7.1, presentation by Leavitt Area High School. You don't even get to be referred to as principal now. You're Leavitt Area High School Evan Shaw.
Hey, there you go.
On the naming of Leavitt Area High School auditorium.
All right, so I'm back here again, here tonight, following up on my request from the September 24th meeting, in which I asked the board to consider beginning the process of naming the auditorium, this auditorium, at Leavitt Area High School in memory of Elaine Chenard. Since that meeting, I've been able to work with representatives from the Leavitt trustees, President Tim Doyle and Mary Briggs, as well as Heidi Poole, our guidance director, and Betsy Moore, our board chair. We shared information. We met to discuss this proposal as well as develop a recommendation for the board. Based on the brief discussion that we had here on the 24th and some conversations that happened around the community, we got a lot of feedback, even from that very small presentation that requested I made at the 24th board meeting. We got input from former students, former colleagues, and it was very helpful in the process. What became immediately apparent was the support that people have for this chance to recognize Ms. Chenard. And anyone who had the opportunity to work with her, either as a student or a colleague, maintains a great deal of respect for her and the work that she did here in the district. So that was pretty impressive to hear a number of those, a lot of feedback. But some background, Elaine Chenard started as a business teacher at Leavitt Institute in 1960. And I'm not sure if it was her intent or not to stay for 40 years, but that's exactly what she did. When she began her career, not only was she teaching at the Institute building, but she was living in the dormitory right next door, Berry Hall. And very soon after she started as a business teacher, she was asked to take on the additional responsibility of bookkeeper/treasurer for the Institute. Now, I think, in my opinion, this seems to have been foreshadowing of things to come, because she was very involved in basically all aspects of school from that point on. Over the years, there seemed to be very few things that Ms. Chenard wasn't involved in. In addition to being a teacher, she was a coach. At different times, she coached softball, basketball, field hockey, and cheering. I bet there's probably more, but those are the ones that I came up with. I was able to find. Additionally, she worked with students in the theater program and served as a class advisor. I did quite a bit of research trying to figure out some exact dates and stuff, but it was a little foggy. But I believe that in 1975, Ms. Chenard moved into administration, serving as the assistant principal until 1998, when she retired for the first time. However, this retirement was short-lived, and she was back working in the guidance office, resuming her support of students after only a short time of being away. She spent the next several years until at least 2008 serving as an unofficial school counselor and all-around cheerleader for 11 students. And I say 2008 because even after she stopped being a regular fixture in the guidance office, she was still here on a regular basis, either stopping in to drop something off or meeting with somebody. She was here all the time, or stopping by on her way to somewhere else. During her time here at Levitt, Ms. Chenard worked with and supported thousands of students and had a positive impact on generations and families. She was a strong advocate for maintaining meaningful traditions and activities for students, one of those being our annual Winter Carnival. And although it's impossible to verify this story, I've heard it, and I think several of us have heard it from more than one source, that on more than one occasion, after some struggles with a particularly rough Winter Carnival week or day, she had to strongly advocate for keeping the tradition going, stressing that the negative behaviors of a few students shouldn't overshadow the overwhelming positive experience for the majority of the students. A Winter Carnival example from Martha Thompson, who was a longtime English teacher here at Levitt, illustrates both the respect students had for Ms. Chenard as well as her belief in them. And this is a quote from Mrs. Thompson. In one crab soccer competition, the opposing teams became too enthusiastic. I remember seeing Elaine Chenard wading into the melee. Students knew Ms. Chenard to be fair and unbiased and understood that she expected the same of them. Because of the students' respect for Ms. Chenard, the teams resumed play, with much less antagonism. And I think that's pretty illustrative of how she worked with students. And I'm going to go off my script here for a minute. Ms. Chenard was not a big woman, so if you didn't know her, you wouldn't know this, but she was quite petite. Small in stature, but big in character, I would say. And I had, I guess, I don't know if I would say the pleasure or opportunity or whatever it was, to see her in action as an assistant principal with a couple of young men who were getting a little overly aggressive in the hallway one day. And I can tell you that even though she wasn't large in stature, when she spoke, those two guys stopped what they were doing and they marched their way to the office right in front of her. So that was impressive to see. But anyway, back onto my script. Ultimately, Ms. Chenard made working with students in the Levitt community her life's work. She was a strong advocate for students, particularly those that might need a little extra attention or slight nudge in order to achieve what she knew they could. She was always willing to provide a helping hand to anyone who needed it, and additionally, she was skilled at finding a student that might be considered a diamond in the rough and working closely with him or her to set goals and support them in achieving those goals. Any student willing, sometimes not so willing, to have a conversation about their future plans immediately secured an advocate in Ms. Chenard. I think it's important that we also recognize the sizable gift that Ms. Chenard has left to the Levitt trustees that will in turn be used to support students in our school. Starting this year and moving forward, the Chenard Family Scholarship will award approximately $30,000 in scholarship monies to graduating seniors on an annual basis. And although this is not the reason at all that we are here or making this request, I think it's important to show how she felt students were, how important students, school, and community were to her. And as I mentioned, the recognition of naming this auditorium isn't about the gift, it's about recognizing the legacy of an individual who dedicated herself to Levitt and our community for over 40 years. The trustees are working to raise funds needed to purchase a plaque for Ms. Chenard to be placed in the auditorium lobby right here, I think, on the wall. Additionally, funds will be raised to establish an account that will be used to assist with upkeep, maintenance, and other general needs here in the auditorium. And although they could not be here in the numbers they would have liked due to gathering restrictions, the trustees wanted me to convey their very strong support for this project. And if all goes well, they plan to have the plaque ready to present at their annual meeting in May. We understand that the naming of the school facility is a big deal and one that doesn't happen often. And I think I mentioned on the meeting of the 24th, I nailed down the last time exactly what happened, but in talking with Betsy, we do believe was when we put the additional wing on the elementary school. So that would have been quite a time ago. As a result, this process wasn't taken lightly. The committee feels humbled to have been a part of this process and to take part in the chance to recognize such a prominent and well-respected member of the Leavitt Area High School community. That said, it is the committee's recommendation to the MSAD 52 Board of Directors that the auditorium at Leavitt Area High School be named the Elaine M. Chenard Auditorium.
Thank you, Mr. Shaw, for that presentation. You did a great job of describing, if it's possible, to describe Elaine's impact. So I think at this point I would entertain a motion to take that action. Mr. Gross?
So moved. Second.
And a second from Carlos. Discussion on this. Mr. Gross?
I briefly was employed and worked in this school when Elaine was assistant principal, and she was always working on behalf of the students. Especially, as Evan said, students who were struggling with their studies or with their situations. And I observed her many times taking students by the hand and getting them, hopefully, headed in the right direction. But she was very modest, very tiny, but very impactful.
Other discussion? Joanne?
Well, I guess mine would simply be, I've looked around and I'm one of the oldest people here, and I knew Elaine when she was the business teacher at Leavitt Institute. So, long time. I think it's well deserved for her.
And I know you can't tell because I'm wearing a mask. Who knows what's going on here? But the image of the crowd soccer game, just that seems perfect. But absolutely, you know, everybody's bouncing around out there. Why not just wade right into it? And yes, petite I think would have been a very accurate.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing at all petite if that voice happened to say want to catch your attention for some reason. That you might know. Anyways, so any other discussion on this one? All those in favor of naming the auditorium? Unanimous. Fantastic. So from a process standpoint, from here, that time frame will be dependent upon the trustees having a plaque, and hopefully we'll be at a point at that point in the calendar when we can make a big deal of it. In whatever format we can. But.
Yeah, in talking with Tim, he really wants to make a big deal out of it, which we should. And is hoping to have the unveiling of the plaque, so to speak, at the meeting in May. It's usually the third week in May, somewhere right around there. There's no telling where we'll be at that point in time, but we want to do it up as well as we can.
Excellent. Thanks again for your work on this, and to the trustees as well for their support, kind of nudging this along as well. Very exciting and well deserved. Brings us to the consent agenda. We entertain a motion for the list.
Second.
Carlos and Richard. All those in favor? Unanimous. Brings us to new business. 9.1, approval of a virtual fundraiser for Leavitt Area High School's Key Club to raise monies for Trick or Treat UNICEF.
So moved. Second.
Carlos, Richard. Discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. 9.2, second reading and adoption of revised policy BEDD, Rules of Order and Regulations. BEDDR.
So moved. Second.
Carlos and Richard. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. 9.3, second reading and adoption of revised policy BIC, MSAD 52, board member freedom of access law, training and exhibition BICE.
So moved. Second.
Carlos and Richard again. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. 9.4, second reading and adoption of revised policy IH, BA, Individualized Education Program.
So moved. Second.
Carlos and Richard. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. 9.5, approval of August, September operating expenditure reports.
So moved. Second.
Carlos and Richard. Discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous. Our remaining 3 items are all executive sessions. Are there any other items of business we need to take up, or we still have a little bit more of an audience? Richard?
I may be out of line, but I'm going to do this anyway. I saw in this morning's paper the death of Pat Jacobs. She was a teacher for years and years and years at Green Central School. A very dear friend of mine that I've known for years and years and years. And I just would like that entered on the record that we paid tribute to Pat at our meeting. She and her husband, George, who was also a teacher at Lewiston High School, lived in Green for years and years and years. So she was 88 years old. God bless Pat.
Thank you. Anything else we need to take up? If not, I would entertain a motion for 9.6, and that is a request for an executive session to discuss the TTEA support staff ESP negotiations pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D.
So moved. Second.
And that was surprisingly enough, Carlos and Richard. All those in favor?